Socrates was born around 469 BCE in Athens, a powerful city-state in ancient Greece. At the time, Athens was developing a new political system known as democracy, where male citizens were expected to participate directly in decision-making. Socrates did not come from a wealthy or influential family. His father, Socrates, was a stone mason or sculptor who worked with his hands, and his mother, Phanerete, was a midwife. This meant Socrates grew up in a modest household and was exposed to ordinary working life rather than privilege or political power. As a boy, Socrates likely received the basic education common to Athenian males. This included learning to read and write, memorizing poetry, studying music, and participating in physical training. There is no evidence that he studied under famous teachers or attended elite institutions. His early life appeared unremarkable, and nothing suggested he would later become one of the most influential figures in human history. Athens during Socrates' youth was frequently at war. Rival city-states competed for dominance, and conflict was a constant presence. Like other Athenian men, Socrates served as a soldier in the city's army. He fought in several important battles during the Peloponnesian War, including Potidaea, Delion, and Amphipolis. Accounts from fellow soldiers described him as disciplined, calm under pressure, and physically resilient. He was known to endure hunger, cold, and exhaustion without complaint, and to assist wounded comrades during retreats. After his military service, Socrates did not pursue wealth, political office, or a traditional profession. Instead, he adopted an unconventional way of life. He spent his days walking through Athens, especially in public areas such as the agora, gymnasiums, and workshops. There, he engaged people in conversation. Rather than teaching formal lessons, he asked questions about moral and philosophical topics, such as justice, virtue, courage, wisdom, and the nature of a good life. Socrates did not charge money for these conversations. This distinguished him from the sophists, who were professional teachers of rhetoric and argumentation. The sophists trained young men to speak persuasively in public and political settings, often in exchange for payment. Socrates criticized them for prioritizing persuasion over truth. He believed that winning arguments without understanding reality was dangerous and misleading. Socrates lived simply. He owned very few possessions and wore the same plain cloak regardless of the season. Ancient sources describe him as physically unattractive by Greek standards. He was short, stocky, and had a flat nose and bulging eyes. In Greek culture, physical beauty was often associated with virtue and excellence, so Socrates' appearance set him apart. Despite this, he attracted many followers, particularly young men from influential families, who were drawn to his questioning and independence from authority. One of the most important events in Socrates' life involved the Oracle of Delphi. According to later accounts, a close friend of Socrates named Cherephin asked the oracle whether anyone was wiser than Socrates. The oracle replied that no one was wiser. When Socrates heard this, he was confused. He did not consider himself wise and often stated that he knew nothing of great importance. Rather than accepting the oracle's claim, Socrates decided to investigate its meaning. He began speaking with people who were widely regarded as wise, including politicians, poets, and skilled craftsmen. He asked them to explain concepts they claimed to understand. During these conversations, Socrates noticed that many individuals spoke confidently but could not clearly define their beliefs. When questioned further, they contradicted themselves or relied on vague explanations. From this process, Socrates reached a conclusion. He believed the oracle was correct in a specific sense. He was wiser than others, not because he possessed special knowledge, but because he recognized his own ignorance. He believed that most people mistakenly assumed they understood things they had never examined carefully. This realization became the foundation of his philosophical approach. Socrates developed a method of inquiry that later became known as the Socratic method. He would ask a series of questions, each one building on the previous answer. Over time, contradictions would emerge, revealing gaps in understanding. Socrates did not present himself as an authority or expert. Instead, he claimed to be searching for truth alongside his conversation partner. Despite this, many people felt embarrassed or exposed by these discussions, especially when they occurred in public. As Socrates' reputation grew, so did hostility toward him. Politicians disliked being shown as lacking wisdom. Poets resented being told that inspiration did not equal understanding. Sophists viewed him as a threat to their influence and income. Although Socrates claimed his goal was truth rather than humiliation, many Athenians believed he deliberately made others look foolish. Socrates' influence on young people became a growing concern. Wealthy youths admired his willingness to challenge authority and question tradition. They often imitated his behavior, questioning elders and established norms. To many older Athenians, this seemed disrespectful and destabilizing. They feared Socrates was undermining traditional values and encouraging disorder. The political situation in Athens intensified these fears. After years of war, Athens suffered defeat and decline. Democracy was temporarily replaced by an oligarchic regime known as the 30 Tyrants. Some members of this regime had connections to Socrates, although he personally refused to participate in their injustices. When democracy was restored, Athenians were determined to prevent further instability. Suspicion toward unconventional thinkers increased. In 399 BCE, formal charges were brought against Socrates. He was accused of impiety, specifically of not believing in the gods of the city and of introducing new divine influences. He was also accused of corrupting the youth of Athens. These charges were vague but powerful, appealing to public fear rather than clear evidence. Socrates was brought before a jury of several hundred male citizens. Athenian trials relied on speeches and persuasion rather than professional judges or lawyers. Socrates defended himself by questioning his accusers and challenging their claims. He argued that his actions benefited the city by encouraging moral reflection. He compared himself to a gadfly that kept a sluggish horse awake, suggesting that Athens needed constant questioning to avoid complacency. Socrates spoke openly about his belief in a divine inner voice that guided him away from wrongdoing. Many jurors interpreted this as evidence that he was introducing new gods. Rather than softening his stance, Socrates remained firm. He refused to flatter the jury or express regret for his way of life. The jury found him guilty by a narrow margin. According to Athenian custom, Socrates was allowed to propose an alternative punishment. Many expected him to suggest exile or a fine. Instead, he proposed that he be rewarded with free meals for life, a privilege reserved for public benefactors. This response angered the jury and reinforced the perception that he was arrogant and defiant. The jury sentenced Socrates to death by drinking hemlock. He was imprisoned while awaiting execution, which was delayed due to a religious festival. During this time, his friends visited him and urged him to escape. They had arranged a plan to help him flee Athens and live in exile. Socrates refused to escape. He argued that breaking the law would contradict his principles. He believed that obeying the laws of the city was a moral duty, even when those laws were unjust. To him, living unjustly was worse than dying unjustly. On the day of his execution, Socrates remained calm. He spoke with his friends about philosophy and the nature of death. When the cup of hemlock was brought to him, he drank it without hesitation. As the poison spread through his body, he gradually lost the ability to move and speak. Shortly afterward, he died at approximately 70 years of age. Socrates left no written works. Everything known about him comes from others, especially his student Plato. Through Plato's writings, Socrates became a central figure in Western philosophy. His method of questioning influenced logic, ethics, education, and political thought. Socrates' execution revealed the limits of tolerance in democratic societies. Although Athens valued free speech, it could not tolerate a man who consistently exposed uncertainty and challenged authority. His death turned him into a symbol of intellectual freedom and moral integrity. More than 2,000 years later, Socrates is remembered not for the power he held, but for the questions he asked. His life demonstrates that questioning society can be both necessary and dangerous. His death serves as a reminder that truth often comes at a cost, especially when it challenges deeply held beliefs.